What's going on, everybody? This is John Jake Gaiman on the mic, coming at you guys with weekly recap, recapping the very first week, the inaugural week actually, of the ACSA Dynasty here on Maximum Football 2020. Today we are going to look at the changes that occurred in the ACSA Top 25 poll, taking a look at some notable recruits that did sign with various college programs throughout the country, and then to wrap things up, we will take a look at the 10 games that will be shown here on the channel over the course of week 2. So it should be a good one, so make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe if you happen to be new. Let's go ahead and jump into this brand new top 25 poll going into week 2. So without further ado, let's go ahead and unveil the official ACSA poll that recently came out. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have as much Super South Conference bias in this top 8. We have only 6 teams from the Super South representing the top 8. Last week, it was 7 out of 8, representing from the Super South Conference. But that was reduced down to 6, with Central Georgia A&M taking a huge upset loss. How far they fell, that is still to be determined. I won't be revealing that just quite yet, but in the meantime, 6 teams did fall out of the poll, and a few things to take away other than the bias from the Super South Conference. Obviously, we have Florida Tech as one of the biggest risers this week, moving up 4 spots. That's tied for most in the entire top 25 poll without coming in as an unranked team. Moving from number 11 up to number 7 in the nation now. That is one of the biggest jumps of this entire week. And also look at Capital Tennessee. They nearly lose to Northern Virginia Angels. They did end up winning 10-7, but they were tied against them in yesterday's matchup. And yet the ACSA official media poll decided to not only not punish them from moving into the from moving down as a result of that performance, but they actually moved them up to number 4 in the nation, which would put them into the college football playoff if the season ended today, which obviously probably wouldn't be the most accurate representation, I would think, but it is still a long season to go for sure. Now, I do definitely agree with the top 2 teams so far on this list. Alabama Hoover really proved it with that 85-point performance in that road opener. And Warwick looks like a really good football team, too. That's definitely a team to watch out for as well going forward. Moving forward, we go into the next portion of the top 25 rankings, where we'll see actually a good portion of Big North squads. Eastern Penn, Bluffton Tech, DeKalb A&M, Southfield, Indiana Fordham, and Detroit State all representing the Big North and taking those 9-14 spots, cementing themselves so far as the second best conference in the country behind the Super South, although whether they are the best conference in the country or not is still to be determined. Texas Catholic and Southern New Mexico also made good strides in the poll, each moving up 3 spots, which is one of the biggest risers this week. Eastern Penn also a big riser as well at number 3. Now, I will say that I mostly agree with this ranking, with the only exception being Bluffton Tech. They're the only team on this list that actually fell down in the polls, and that was despite the fact that they won 63-0. And it doesn't matter who you play against. Obviously, there's no FCS team to go up against. These are all teams in the same league that they're going up against, so certainly no absolute cupcakers or walk-on teams or even Southeast Alaska State to go up against. So if you win 63-0, there shouldn't be any reason to fall out in the polls or to fall whatsoever. So Bluffton Tech falling down to the number 10 spot after being ranked number 9 last week. That is a little concerning. That is certainly a story to follow. Has me wondering if the ACSA media is against Bluffton Tech. Would make for a good underdog story if they make it a long way this season. They certainly have the talent to do it. And another thing is, these Big North teams eventually have to play each other. So it'll definitely be a conference race to watch out for sure. With whoever wins that conference, sure we will have a really good chance of making it to the ACSA College Football Playoff at the very end of this season. And finally, we will go ahead and move into the final top 25 portion. Seeing teams 17 through 25, we have a good health of conferences here. We have almost all of the Power 5 conferences with the exception of the Super South. And we also have 4 new newcomers to the top 25 poll, with those teams, representing, from 21 to 25 are Hiawatha College from the Big North Conference, the southeastern coast of Florida making their first appearance at number 23, followed by Indian Trail from the Big Southwest Conference, and then Boston State's going to round out the group, making their first appearance in the ACSA Top 25, coming at number 25 in the country and representing the Atlantic Shore Conference as well. And so that also means there are 4 different teams that did leave the inaugural ACSA poll that did not make it. Most notable was Central Georgia A&M, who was ranked number 3 in the country. Because of their loss, they fell all the way out of the top 25 poll. Other teams to fall out of the top 25 because of losses is the Lebanon Aviators, who were ranked number 10 last week, as well as UGBC, who was number 17, but are much lower thanks to their loss. The only notable exception, though, is Delaware at Kent from the Atlantic Shore Conference. They were ranked number 21 in the country in the inaugural poll. However, for some reason, despite them winning, they fell out of the top 25 poll. They fell down to around the number 38, that kind of range. So definitely a head scratcher for why they fell so far. I felt like they didn't deserve to, leave the top 25 poll. I feel like they did enough to prove themselves as a top 25 team, but there are some new teams here. Let's see how they do with the pressure of being a top 25 team for the very first time this season. One more thing that I do want to note as well is there is still only one team representing the Big Pacific Conference. Spokane Tech is that squad, although they are one of the biggest risers this week. They move up 4 spots, which is a tie for the biggest rise. They are now coming in at number 19 in the nation, but clearly the ACSA media does not favor the Big Pacific Conference favorably, because despite being a Power 5 conference in this simulated league, they only have 1 ranked team so far. And honestly, that's pretty sad to see that, considering the treatment that other Power 5 conferences get. With the top 25 poll officially out of the way, though, let's go ahead and get into some recruiting. Now, it is early in the season, so there hasn't been too much activity on the recruiting front, but despite it only be 1 week, there were multiple guys from the top 100 that did end up making their college decisions, and we are going to find out right now on this channel shortly to see which prospects signed and where they are going to call home for the next 3 to 4 years of their athletic careers. So ultimately, there were 6 guys that did decide to sign their letter of intent to play at various schools in the ACSA. Most notable is Brandon Clark. He is the number 2 overall rated prospect, first best quarterback of this class, signing with Capital Tennessee. Capital Tennessee, despite their lackluster performance on the football field, did one heck of a job recruiting this week. They got 3 total recruits out of the 6 that signed in the top 100, 2 of which are 5-star recruits. They got the best quarterback, they have the best running back, and they got the number 3 wide receiver of this recruiting class to join them as well. So a trio, on offense really that Capital Tennessee can build around for years to come. So I'm sure that coaching staff and Capital Tennessee fans are going to be very excited about having them on the roster next season. Now, other teams able to get a high-profile recruit is 5-star Sebastian Rogers, a 6'3" wide receiver from Florida. He's the number 3 overall prospect, best wide receiver of his class, has decided to attend the University of Alabama Hoover, who sits as the number 1 team in the country. They're going to help build that tradition with one of the best wide receivers in this recruiting class as well. Offensive lineman Duke Young also signed with a Super South squad, a 6'2", 300-pound behemoth from the state of California. Number 4 overall rated prospect with the best offensive lineman graded in this recruiting class, going across the country to play at South Alabama State, where the Hyenas will look to utilize him early and often on that offensive line. Finally, Darius Earhart, a defensive back who has good size for a defensive back, 6 foot, 203 pounds from Chilano, Illinois, is the 14th overall rated prospect with the second best defensive back. He's going to Bluffton Tech, and with Bluffton Tech being the coach, team that I happen to be coaching, at least controlling the recruitment, shout out to me for getting off a high-profile recruit this early in the season, because I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm not very good with recruiting in the Maximum Football Series. I wasn't in 19. I'm certainly not the very best with Maximum Football 2020's recruiting either. So I'm happy to get this 5-star player on my team early and often. Now, usually what I will do is I will separate the 5-star and 4-star prospects, so they'll be showing on different screens. However, only 6 players signed on screen this week. So they will be shown in the same screen this time around, but that probably will not be the case going forward. But great haul by the Capital of Tennessee, getting a 3 guys from the top 6. So with that being said, that does lead to our first ever recruiting rankings for the inaugural season. Nothing really needs to be debated here. The Capital of Tennessee did win the week 1 of recruiting, getting 3 top 100 prospects, 3 of the 6 that signed. And, so that means Capital Tennessee will start the season off as the number 1, ranked team in terms of recruiting. They have the number 1 recruiting class so far this season. Only 3 other teams with top 100 prospects. I'm not going to bother to show any teams in these recruiting rankings that do not get top 100 recruits, since, trying to do over 2,000 prospects, that's going to be a lot to do. So I'm going to focus in on the top 100 for you guys, because those are the guys I know that you're going to really care about how their careers go. So the other teams that are on here are Alabama Hoover, South Alabama State, and Bluffton Tech. Alabama Hoover securing a top 5 player, best wide receiver in this class, a immediate skill player, impact player potentially. Alabama Hoover does move into number 2 in the recruiting rankings, whereas South Alabama State, who does have a top 5 player too, but it's not of, of skill position, offensive line, is not a flashy position. They will be a notch below Alabama Hoover, but they have a great offensive lineman that they can build around, will be a future captain on that team, I'm sure of it. Meanwhile, Bluffton Tech, got a top 15 player themselves. Not the best defensive back in this class, but still a very darn good football player. Darius Earhart will be a difference maker in day 1. And Bluffton Tech, the only Super South team, non-Super South team, that is in these rankings. Bluffton Tech is going to come in number 4, in these recruiting class rankings that do have top 100 players. So now that we made it through the recruiting segment, let's go ahead and now take a look at the 10 games that will be shown here over the course of week 2. Now, we did not have any top 25 matchups over the course of this week. So once again, it will be divided into 3 parts. Part 1 will be seen on Monday, Part 2 will be on Wednesday, and then Part 3 will be shown on Friday, each having 3 to 4 games depending on the week. Now, let's go ahead and start with Monday's games. The first of which is the Savannah Bison going on the road to play against the Wentzville Vikings from the Big Southwest Conference. This is going to be a battle of 0-1 teams where one way or another, one of these teams is going to get their very first win of the young season. After that, we'll go over to the great state of Oklahoma, where the Franklinton Red Rams from North Carolina are going to make the trip out west to play against the Clinton Indians in the state of Oklahoma. And I'll tell you what, these guys are also from the Big Southwest Conference, so a little dose of the Southwest, early and often in week 2. And then finally, to wrap up Monday's games, we have Central Tech, who took a bad 63-0 loss to Bluffton Tech last week. they'll play another Big North opponent, this time going up against the Madison Lakers from the Big North Conference, who are coming into this week at number 17 in the nation. Moving on to Wednesday's game, we'll start with a matchup between the South Idaho State Ranchers from the Midwest Conference. They're going to go on the road to play up against none other than the Southfield Dalmatians, coming off of a 27-0 victory against the Brooklyn Wolves. Let's see if they can improve to 2-0 this time, playing as the host. After that, we'll see the Palo Alto State Blue Jays from the Rocky Mountain Conference, repping that state of California, gonna go up north to play against the Tacoma State Rockets, who put up one of the highest scores in all of Week 1. They put up 75 points in their first game of the season. Let's see if they can keep that offensive firepower up when they take on Palo Alto. After that, we'll see the Colorado Tech Rattlesnakes coming off of a tough loss versus Montana A&M. They go on the road to play against the Hebrew University of California, who is also searching for their first win of the young season. And then finally, to wrap up the Wednesday games, we'll see Ron Burgundy once again, on the YouTube channel. This time they will be at home and they will be playing the Wyoming State Cowboys, who are still currently searching for their very first win of the young season. Now it's time to move on to the Friday's games, and it's going to be the final 3 games I will show on this channel over the course of Week 2. We'll have the Hawaii A&M Sharks on the screen for the first time this season, going on the road to play against the Montana A&M Coyotes, who narrowly escaped, an upset, defeat. They are 1-0. We'll see who improves to 2-0 on the season from this matchup. After that, we'll witness the Vermont Vipers from, I believe it's either the Midwest, actually it is the Midwest Conference, my apologies. They go on the road to play against the number 9th ranked team in the nation in the Eastern Pennsylvania Beavers. Let's see if they can live up to that top 10 ranking as we progress through the season. And for the final game that will be shown here in Week 2, we have the Montana State Helena Miners going on the road to play against the Northern New York Freeze from the Big North Conference. They had, a nice little victory to begin the seasons. They win their last game 30-0. So let's see if they can keep that going. Being in a tough conference like the Big North, they're going to need all the help they can get. So guys, that is going to wrap up today's ACSA episode. Let me know in the comments how you feel about, these teams. There's any teams out there that you feel is a dark horse to win the national championship after this first week of the ACSA. Other than that, if you enjoyed today's video, do me a favor and please smash that like button, as well as hit subscribe if you do happen to be brand new to the channel and you like what you see. In the meantime though, I hope you guys are all having a wonderful day. Take care, everybody.